Welcome back, Truth Seeker. Little update. We're going to do a rebrand on this channel, and we're also launching the new channel. Count on it. I'm going to turn this channel into Breaking It Down with Zachary K. Hubbard. I'll get to why I chose that name. And we'll also have the Count on It podcast. And the reason I'm doing this is because part of the reason this channel does poorly in the algorithm is how YouTube has changed their platform. I was watching one of the YouTube executives talk about how if you are a channel that creates news related content, it's actually a very difficult platform right now because if you're covering the different news stories, there's no consistency to your channel, and they want channels that are niche or niche oriented, meaning they stick to a topic and they cover that topic redundantly and they become seen as experts in that topic. And they said with news, that's a hard one because news can be so diverse. You could be covering Ukraine today, a disease the next day, exactly what's going on over here. So I thought, that exactly describes the problem that this channel's been having. And to me, it seems silly that YouTube made it this way. They probably did it intentionally because, as we know, 10 years ago, if you were looking for alternative news, YouTube was a good place to go to. If you now search for a news topic on YouTube, what do you get recommended first and foremost? You get recommended the actual news channels, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox, etc., etc. The actual use, people like yours truly on YouTube now get drowned out. So I'm not going to change what I cover. I'm going to continue to cover the news, but I'm wondering if changing this to a podcast and having similar titles each day, where it's breaking it down episode 1, it's breaking it down episode 2, and I write down in the description what's actually covered in that video, if this will help solve the problem and help bring traffic back to the channel. Because again, it's very frustrating being a content creator who commanded tens of thousands of views years ago and now averages about 2,000 views per video. This may or may not solve the problem, but I will only know by trying. So breaking it down is going to be where we break down the news each day by the numbers. And I thought that title was fitting because that's truly what we do. We break down the news and show how it is literally propaganda contrived by a Kabbalistic code. And also, when you say breakdown, usually that refers to, falling apart. We're not trying to break down over here, but we're trying to break down this mainstream media that has so many people under total mind control. So for the time being, it will be the name of the new podcast. And I do intend to turn these into audio files and also start uploading them each day to streaming services to try and reach more outlets. But yeah, the two podcasts going forward will be Breaking It Down, which will probably be a daily podcast or almost every single day of the week. And I will try to aim for this time, midday West Coast, early afternoon, approaching evening time on the East Coast. My schedule's become quite structured. I have to get out the sports broadcast on the Patreon in the morning, and I have to pick up Sweet Girl not long after this time. I'm going to be a little bit late today. But yeah, you can count on the regularly scheduled Breaking It Down podcast around this time daily. And then the Count on It, we still will do on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sunday nights. And I do want them to differentiate from each other, obviously. I think I'm going to try and make Count on It more just more of a conversation, relevant topics. Tonight, because we have somebody who's thinking about self-deletion in the community, without naming them, I'm going to try and talk about what they're going through because it's something that a lot of younger people go through. And I do care about that person, and I've been trying to help them out with their problems for some time now. And they're stuck in a rut, but I know if they persevere, they'll look back at these days and realize, oh, it was all part of the growing process, and now I'm better off for it. But anyway, let's get into today's episode of Breaking It Down. One of the top stories, Ukraine reportedly, you'll hear me use that word reportedly a lot around here because what's in the news, a lot of times it's just reported. It's not actually what's really going on. And it's hard for people to prove because they're not on the ground to verify themselves. But when you can be on the ground with these news stories, you start to see the funny business that's going on. Again, there's a reason they call it back to your regularly scheduled programming. This news is here to program you, and they give you stories that usually you can't prove yourself, and they want to control your mind and make you take certain routes in life. They want you to submit to their agendas, give up your rights and liberties, give up your tax dollars, vote in their rigged selections, choose one side of the aisle so it can be divided we fall instead of united we stand. Anyhow, one of the stories reportedly is that Russia launched their worst attack on Ukraine in Kyiv, the worst attack since 33 killed back in July of 2024. We're going to get to why today was such a perfect day for this story. And again, we're just going to break it down. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the passing of Steve Mongo. If you've read any of the stories, all of them are attached to Ric Flair. He used to wrestle with Ric Flair in the WCW. Steve Mongo's dead at 67. He wore the number 76, the reflection, and you'd never guess how old Ric Flair is. Yes, 76 years old. We're going to see that this looks like no accident. It's been reported he died from ALS, which is another moneymaker. I'm sure a few more people are making some donations today after the loss of big-time celebrity Steve Mongo. But again, we're going to look at the funny business there. We're going to break it down. And I promise I won't say that again for the rest of the podcast. But anyhow, Bobby Cremo. Numerous times since the Bobby Cremo 4th of July shooting outside of Chicago in the same neighborhood where they shot Ferris Bueller's Day Off. What About Bob? Part of that movie was shot there. This is Bobby Cremo. Today, sent to life in prison, at least so we're told. You might recall his dad was a big executive with a Fortune 500 corporation. Kind of like the SH shooter as well. His dad was big with General Electric. But anyhow, we're going to see just how perfect it is today that he gets life in prison. They just couldn't have scripted it any better. We're going to be at all D. But anyway, also a 6.2 in Turkey. We were just talking about how biblical Turkey is where biblical Philadelphia is and why Philadelphia is so relevant to the death of the Pope. The first Jesuit Pope. You'd never believe the way this one's going to line up with the Jesuit Superior General, this quake in Turkey. And remember, without the Jesuits, there is no Richter scale. There is no seismology. The Jesuits, who gave us the language and the calendar, they also gave us the study of seismology, and there's a reason these numbers are all so perfect. Also, Protect the Dolls, viral movement for the LGBTQ. The celebrities are wearing the t-shirt, Protect the Dolls. You can buy a Protect the Dolls t-shirt. We're going to talk about what is so familiar with Protect the Dolls, which is targeting 78-year-old Donald Trump. Again, you'll never believe it. And we do have a name in the Shannon Sharp accusation story. We have Instagram model Gabby Zuniga. They all put out that tweet or that whatever it was, social media post or text message, when they were hyping this story on the day the Pope died about how Shannon was paying $25,000 a booty cheek to see her, which adds up to $50,000 if you can do math. And now she wants $50 million. $50 million. You wouldn't think a halfway handsome celebrity with a body like Shannon Sharp, former star, would have to be paying anybody $50,000 for a booty call. Looks like a shaming ritual. And we covered it yesterday, but we're going to cover it again because it's one of the most important stories since the death of the Pope. And by the way, if you're new to this podcast, you say, how come you're not covering the death of the Pope? Trust me, I covered it all over on my YouTube channel and my new podcast. Count on it. You can look that up. I won't be super redundant because I've hit that one over and over, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. But yeah, let's start right here with Vladimir Putin's supposed attack on Kyiv. Again, since this is the inaugural broadcast and you might be listening for the first time, I talk about something that most people don't talk about. The unique practice of coding numbers into words, which comes from Kabbalah. It is known as Gematria. Previously, my channel was called GematriaEffect.News, but it seems the algorithm doesn't like this word or anybody talking about Gematria because every channel who's covered this topic has seen their views drastically cut in the last handful of years. And I'm thinking I got to get away from the word too, because my videos my videos and my views have never been doing worse in the algorithm. Something tells me the cabal doesn't want people knowing about their secret code of letters and numbers, a practice that goes back to Babylon. It's also a challenging topic to reach people with, because somehow, some way, people have seemingly a chip in their mind, like they're a character out of Black Mirror, where they hear this word or this idea and they instantly turn off, when in reality they should be turning on in a big way, because this is a simple practice that anybody can learn, and by learning it you can see the redundancy and the undeniable ritualism within the news. Case in point, Turkey equals 62, big viral stories, the 6.2 earthquake in Turkey. You learn this code, you're going to start to see that the magnitude of earthquakes almost always corresponds with the location when they're big ones in the headlines. Somebody out there's like, well, there's small ones every day that hardly make I get it. But when there's these big ones that become the national and international headlines, the numbers seem to constantly fit with the location. We just talked about what they did in Burma and why it mattered that there was a 7.7 at the 770th minute of the day, 77 years after they got independence from the United Kingdom. But anyway, for the record, if anyone's going, what's Burma? It's also known as Myanmar. Remember, that was the big earthquake last month. And sadly, my wife is from that land. It's third world country. A lot of people still can't even get to their loved ones because they're still buried in rubble and they don't have the machinery to remove it. There's people that are still hoping somehow, some way, their children, their spouse, their family members are somehow still surviving down there. But also, a lot of people are starting to smell a lot of stink because Burma's a hot place. It's warm there, and bodies are decomposing under rubble. Again, we're going to get to why all of this is done. Well, here, to make a long story short, a lot of this has to do with depopulation. Again, this podcast is about waking people up to the agendas that are very real, that most people are snoozing on, and it's time to stop hitting the snooze button on. It's time to wake up and smell the whatever you want to say, roses or otherwise, and help become part of the solution to shutting down these agendas. And a major way to shut them down is by people tuning out from news media, because it is nonstop propaganda. It's nonstop deception. It's nonstop lies. It's nonstop trying to bait you into submitting to whatever it is they want you to submit to. Like sending more of your hard-earned tax dollars over to a country that you cannot even identify on a map because a supposed war is going on over there. So with that said, Russia-Ukraine. Today is April 24th, the 114th day of the year. And again, this calendar that says it's April 24th in the year 2025, which is all really highly arbitrary. Again, it all goes back to the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church and their military, the Jesuits, implemented the calendar. And don't forget, it was implemented in history on February 24th, which is the same day in history this war between Russia and Ukraine began, two nations that used to be one and the same, part of the Soviet Union. Don't be surprised if decades from now the United States of America has been broken up into smaller countries and it's warring with each other, just like Ukraine and Russia are now. Again, the people at the top, they love war. It's a major moneymaker. It serves a lot of agendas. It keeps people in fear, which keeps them in check. But anyway, coming back to this ritual happening on the 114th day of the year, those same Jesuits who gave us the calendar, they're also behind the text Art of War. If you're not familiar with that text, you probably don't read it all. That's also something you should incorporate into your life, reading. Hardly anyone reads. Reading is so essential. It exercises muscle in the brains that watching screens just doesn't. But Art of War is one of the most famous texts of all time. It's credited to a Chinese war general, Sun Tzu, but the funny thing is there's no proof of Sun Tzu ever existed. The gang that worships the sun is the Catholic Church, and that's why the Jesuit logo is the sun. And the reason people know about Art of War is because of the Jesuit priest Father Amiot, who published the text back in 1772 and 73, right before this nation was founded, the United States of America, where the Jesuits took it over in its early years. And that's part of the reason it's been at war ever since. And of course, we have a lot to do with this war between Russia and Ukraine. We're financing the whole other side of the war. Otherwise, it would have been over within days of it beginning. And look at what it is now. After financing tuna billions, kind of the hunch is like, well, everyone's just going to roll over and give Russia what it wants because Ukraine doesn't stand a chance. Well, why didn't we just let this play out naturally instead of wasting God knows how many billions upon billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars? Anyway, 114th day of the year. In this practice of coding numbers into words, art of war equals 114, as does world war. Art of war 114, just like world war. And this number shows up a lot in major war rituals. I'll give you one from the past. Pearl Harbor, 114. Of course, it was Pearl Harbor that got the U.S. involved in the World War. And again, if you've never read Art of War, it's a short text. I highly suggest you read it. It has a lot of philosophy in there, and kind of the gist of it is it's better to win the war without even having to fight the war. It's better to essentially achieve the war through trickery and deception. The idea is expressed in there. You know, you can take over your enemy without your enemy even knowing that they've been taken over. You read this text and you start to look at this country and you start to say, you know what? This is all starting to make a lot of sense. It's all starting to make a lot of sense. I think that's exactly what's going on here. And one of my favorite chapters in there is chapter 11, titled The 9 Situations, or I might be getting dyslexic right now. It's either chapter 11, The 9 Situations, or chapter 9, The 11 Situations. But if you look into that text, you'll find that chapter is 68 paragraphs long. Not very long, 68 paragraphs. Again, if you're new here, in 1968, everything went into motion for 9/11. World Trade Center construction began in New York. 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. George W. Bush got out of Yale Skull and Bones. And of course, he was a member of Yale Skull and Bones, and he was the president at the time when 9/11 happened. And Boeing, which was also founded by a Skull and Bones member, debuted their jumbo jetliners in 68. And of course, all the planes supposedly involved on 9/11 were Boeing. And if you still haven't seen the footage of the first plane that hit the tower, you know that the images were fake because the plane flew all the way through the building and they had to cut the screen to black and fuzz, and then they edited it and you never saw that image again. So just think about it. If the first footage of a plane hitting the tower was a glitch, a computer glitch, which showed it fly all the way through the tower, that should tell you the reality of the day. And it's sad that we are in 2025 and this information's been out there for decades, and anybody who did their homework decades ago knew these things. But again, here we are. People under the total spell of deception and authority, and they don't know how they're being mocked and why all these things are done so ritualistically. A national emergency on 911. We'll get to how Vatican Hill equals 911 in another podcast. Again, reminding you who runs the show, because the fingerprints of the Jesuits and their militaries were all over 9/11, including what we did to the Muslims in the latest Crusades, which George W. Bush referred to it as. And it should remind you that the latest war in Israel began on the anniversary of us invading Afghanistan, which also began on Putin's birthday. And once upon a time, we funded Osama bin Laden to interfere with the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. But yes, coming back to today's news, this horrible act of war on the 114th day of the year, which now has Trump, the Jesuit puppet, former Fordham student, again, that's the Jesuit University of New York, saying it's time for a ceasefire that's lived up to. It's time for a peace deal. Of course, Trump is number 47. Zelensky just turned 47 years old, the former actor who turned president after doing a show about a common man becoming the president of Ukraine. And in Gematria, Ukraine also equals 47. So I do think it's likely we see that war come to a wind down in the time of Zelensky being 47, which will be through next January. But I won't be surprised if they tune up the war going on in the Middle East, escalating that with Iran being the next target. Remember, Netanyahu came back to power on Albert Pike's birthday, December 29th. And that's the same man who wrote the letter about 3 world wars to come and published it on the Jesuit order's birthday, August 15th, 1871. With regards to today's strike, they're saying it killed a number of people and injured many more. If it is true and people were killed in this ritual, and no doubt it was, today does leave 251 days left in the year. Ritual sacrifice equates to 251. Keep in mind, 251 is the 54th prime number, and Jesuit order equates to 54. Again, their headquarters is at the Church of the Jesu, Building 54. As for several headlines talking about how deadly today's attack was, the war began February 24th, 2022 officially, again, the day that the Jesuits implemented the calendar in history. And that means today's attack on April 24th was exactly 38 months later. 38 is a number that we talk about all the time with death. Death, murder, killing, RIP, they all equate to 38. You can look up the movie poster for Murder by Numbers. Again, there's a 38 coded right into the words. It's impossible not to see. Don't forget this nation's killing department's on the 38th parallel. I'm talking about the Pentagon, and Pentagon equals 38. And don't forget that Pete Hegseth, the current head of the Pentagon, who's going through some struggles by the numbers. Remember, he was nominated on the Superior General's birthday. That's the leader of the Jesuits, Arturo Sosa. And he was fully installed 38 days after the Pope's birthday, right before the Pope spent 38 days in the hospital just before his death by the numbers, as we've covered. So today is also 163 days after the Superior General's birthday, which is the 38th prime. And you get this story of mass murder on this strike in Kyiv. So you have this double 38 connection. And once again, perfectly coordinated with the leader of the Jesuits. People who gave us the calendar and the language as we know it at the end of the 16th century and set up a system. And again, people always have that question, well, why English then? Again, because if you look into the roots of English, it goes back to the church, and it was the Jesuits who standardized the alphabet at the same time they implemented the calendar. It's very clear that they put this system into motion. Again, the idea of coding numbers into words is an idea that's associated with God through Kabbalah. Again, in Kabbalah's Book of Formation, it says God created the world with numbers, letters, and words. These people are creating the world as they want it every day with their stories that are Kabbalistic propaganda. They're creating the world where they're in control, where the people are their subjects, going along with their agendas, believing their stories. And think about the power of storytelling and belief and how many people allow their minds to be controlled by authorities through these very tactics, from religion to the news. You start to realize it's all stories, it's all fear-driven, it's all comply or else, comply or you're a bad person. If you don't go along with the authorities said, if you don't believe what the authorities said, you're a weirdo, a wacko, a lunatic, a conspiracy theorist. All of this needs to change because it's just the opposite. The reality is, if you're believing the stories of authorities in 2025, you're a chump. You're a loser. You're a moron. You're a useful idiot. You're pathetic. You're the problem. You're helping drag us all to hell. That's the real reality, and not enough people understand that. 90% of the populace thinks just the opposite. They're the ones going along with all the lies and truly dragging us all to hell. And for the record, I'm not sure that hell is a real place, but hell on earth is a real thing, and we're watching it happen, and a lot of people are compliant. The reason it's being created is because of this society of Jesus, the same ones who introduced the concept of hell, who want everyone to just believe and accept what they're told from the authorities. It needs to change. By the way, they said this attack on Kyiv happened at the 55th minute of the day. 55th minute of the day. We talked about this in a big way when the war officially began on the 55th day of the year, February 24th. Military equals 55, as does Putin. So here we are again with that. And don't forget what just happened in Burma, the massive earthquake 55 days after the anniversary of the military overthrowing the country in a major Jesuit ritual. Earthquake equals 55 like military. And yes, militaries do have technology that can cause earthquakes, including massive bombs, energy weapons, all the things people need to wake up to. Saying this stuff is conspiracy theory is pure ignorance. It's pure ignorance. If you do not know that these technologies exist in 2025, you are a useful idiot. You are part of the problem. You need to wake up and do better research. Jesse Ventura, in his show Conspiracy Theory, covered these things and what he learned about this from being a Navy SEAL decades ago. Decades ago. By the way, if you learn this code of letters and numbers, you'll start to understand the numbers that are encoded stories. For example, the attack on Kyiv today, they said Moscow sent 70 missiles and 145 drones towards Ukraine. We just talked about these numbers with the death of the Pope. Vatican equals 70, Francis equals 70. He died on 70 date numerology. He died 145 months after becoming Pope. Catholic equals 145. Like there's 145 more chapters in the Catholic Old Testament, the Jewish section. Of course, Ukraine, very Jewish area. The wars in ancient Khazaria, where the people who we call Jewish mostly come from. People in Israel, a lot of them are Khazarians. Again, these things are not an accident. It's also why Israel was created on 14/5, the 14th day of the 5th month. David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister, 145. And just for routine numbers that they throw out all the time, they have to tell you that the last most deadliest attack killed 33 people. Just 33. I mean, come on. 33 in every other news story. So that is why the attack happened today. The deadly attack by the code of art of war. And one wonders if there even was an attack, or is this just another justification for why we're going to have to send even more taxpayer dollars. Now, Steve Mongo, again, Steve McMichael, known as Mongo, the NFL and WCW star. He was part of that Bears team that won the they won the Super Bowl at the start of 86. It was the 85-86 season. They won the Super Bowl over the Patriots 46-10 with the revolutionary 4-6 defense. And then you learn gematria and you realize Chicago equals 46. But again, dead at 67, war number 76. He was friends with Ric Flair, who is 76, whose name in gematria equals 76. If you're new here, 67, deadly number. In Sunday night's broadcast on Count On It, I ended the podcast talking about, for the people who are new to that show, which I also just started. Again, if you guys are new here, I've been doing this kind of content for going on 12 years come August. But I'm having to rebrand because of all the censorship and deletions and algorithm. I'm trying to find a way to help this message reach more people. Anyhow, Sunday night, I closed out by saying 67 is a number you have to recognize in celebrity death. The very next day, the Pope dies 67 days from his hospitalization. Again, blood sacrifice equals 67, just like human sacrifice. If you run the alphabetic order in reverse, and by the way, if you're new here, that is one thing we haven't covered yet, and I probably should cover that at the top, this practice of coding numbers into words. There's 4 base ciphers of the English language. I learned about these from the book by Manly P. Hall, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, which was published in 1926. The 4 base ciphers are all elementary. They're all intuitive. You could teach these to a child. It's ABC is 1, 2, 3 up to Z, the 26 letters, 26. It's the alphabetic order with numerology applied, just making each letter a single-digit number. So, for example, Z, the 26th letter, would become 2 plus 6 is 8. Y, the 25th letter, would be 2 plus 5 is 7. X, the 24th letter, would be 2 plus 4 is 6. Thus, XXX is 666. I'll let you think about that. The other 2 ciphers are just running the alphabetic order in reverse and running it in reverse with numerology. Blood sacrifice, just like human sacrifice, equates to 67 when you run the alphabetic order forwards with numerology. It equates to 86, both phrases, when you run it in reverse with numerology. This man won the Super Bowl in 86 and is dead at 67. Not an accident. He was the 73rd overall pick of the draft. Sacrifice equals 73 with the alphabetic order. Ritual sacrifice equals 73 with the alphabetic order and numerology, as does his name, Stephen McMichael. Stephen McMichael, 73rd overall pick. Pay attention to the draft today. You're going to see the same kind of stuff happen in the NFL draft today. Today's day 1 of the draft. They're saying Cam Ward's going to go number 1. If you missed my work last year on the hurricane that blew through Miami the day of a major windstorm in Washington State, Cam Ward went from Washington State to the Hurricanes. Go back and watch. It'll blow your mind. Cam Ward has the same birthday as the Scorpions singer, the same band who did Rock You Like a Hurricane. People got to learn about weather warfare, too. It might be over people's pay grade, but they got to up their pay grade. People need to understand this weather warfare, how it's sync with sports. I was saying, man, Cam Ward must be somebody to sync up a massive windstorm in Washington State and a hurricane with while he's playing for the Miami Hurricanes this year. And now he's expected to go number 1 in the draft later today. Anyway, Stephen McMichael, his name equals 73 and 154, just like ritual sacrifice. He was drafted 45 years ago. Bears equals 45. Run it in reverse. Stephen McMichael equals 80, like he was drafted in 80. The world of sports is full of ritualism by the numbers. This isn't unique to him. You start to pay attention. You start to see this is going on with a lot of your favorite athletes. His death comes 137 days before the Bears' home opener, or actually, I got to double check if it's their home opener, but their season opener on September 7th. 137 is the 33rd prime number. NFL has the gematria value of 137. Big number at the NFL, 137. Dead 137 days before the opener. Ming the Merciless was one of his nicknames. That equals 253. That's the 22nd triangular number, like there's 22 men on a football field. But he died on the first of the last 253 days of the year. Again, he was an associate of Ric Flair's, part of the Four Horsemen, biblical. Ric Flair equals 76. Ric Flair's 76 years old. Mongo war number 76 in the NFL. Also, from Ric Flair's last birthday to Steve McMichael's death was 57 days later. He was commonly known as Steve McMichael. Steve McMichael equals 57. Every year that the draft comes around, there's always deaths super close to the NFL draft. It's just like clockwork. You had 2 former college players just dead within days. Steve McMichael's now dead the day before the draft kicks off. As the season approaches, the same type of thing will happen. As the playoffs and Super Bowl come around, the same type of thing will happen. Again, when I was a child, they would teach us that the Mayans, part of the reason they went extinct is because they sacrificed their own people. They talk about how for big sports events for the king, they would sacrifice the winning team back in the Mayan day. The Mayan wanted the greatest athletes sacrificed in his honor. That was the ultimate tribute. The things going on today aren't much different. You know, we learned in slave school, pledging to 13 stripes for 13 years. This is the thing that ancients did. The thing is, this is the stuff still going on to this very day. Blood sacrifices. And again, I'm on the outside looking in. If you want to know why they do this, all I can say is they must harness some kind of energy. They must get something out of this. Or it could be empty ritualism that's important to them. How many people believe in rituals that really don't have any power? You know? A lot of people think going to church on Sunday and drinking the blood and eating the body makes them holier than thou. Does it really? I don't know. If there's a hell, you might go there. Drinking blood and eating body sounds weird to me. You look at most people from that religious group, they think all they got to do is just believe in some nonsensical story, and that's enough to be a good person. They live completely corrupt and bankrupt lives. They're totally immoral people. They do nothing to serve others. They do nothing in the pursuit of truth. They just think they're great people because they believe in a story because that's what they've been told by some authorities. Drink some blood, eat some bodies, believe in a story. Look at me, I'm holier than thou. They end up like my sister. I mean, I'm describing my sister right now. My sister thinks I'm a horrible person for exposing the news. She thinks what I should be doing is going to church on Easter and on Christmas like her and complying with everything the authorities tell us every day. She thinks that's what a decent human being does. And you know what? She's like 90% of the populace. Just go along to get along. Hey, I'm following what the authority told me to do. That's my place on this earth. This is all the kind of stuff that needs to be reversed. The reality is my sister empowers the liars. She goes along with the agendas. My sister went and got all the clot shots, and now she's been continually sick day after day. Her husband, who she got divorced with recently, has cancers all over his body. We don't know how much time he has left. She forced the jab on her children. We'll see what ends up happening. You know, she's the only person in our family that didn't listen to me. She's the only one that's got health consequences, too, because of it. And meanwhile, you turn on the TV, they're still saying safe and effective. They're still lying. Safe and effective. They think they can just keep lying and people will keep buying it up. And you know what? They're right. People like my sister turn on TV, they're like, see, I did the right thing. It was safe and effective. Oh, my God, I have the flu again. Wow, I really don't feel well. I've never been this sick in the summer again. Man, this is the 3rd summer in a row I have the horrible flu. I never had flu my whole life in the summer. But, man, they told me it's safe and effective, so it must be. She's breaking down. I told her she'd be breaking down. Bill Gates told everybody they'd be breaking down from those shots. He said all a decade in advance. He said there's going to be a rollout in a decade. Called it all out from the World Economic Forum that simulated the whole scam the same day the military World Games began in Wuhan, China, and still half the world, I've said half the world, still 90% of the world at least doesn't know about the simulation of the scandemic on the day the military World Games began in Wuhan, China, where it was co-hosted by the Billy Goat, the same guy who a decade earlier said exactly what was going to happen. Said how they can reduce population if they do a good job with the things that look like the Space Needle directly across the street from his foundation. Corona means crown. The first case in the world outside of China is in King County in Bill Gates' backyard. I mean, really, you got to be just a special kind of stupid to not see the mockery. Coming back to Steve McMichael, poor guy. He was born in 57, too. Like Steve McMichael equals 57, and he's dead 57 days after Ric Flair's birthday. Right before the draft. All right. Moving on. Bobby Cremo. Bobby Cremo the third with the 47 tattooed on his head and a big 47 painted on his car, and he's the shooter on the 4th of July. Again, government authority, president, White House, Republican, Democrat, DC, Vatican, the list goes on. They all equal 47. 47 is the number of time and authority. Huge number in ritualism. But yeah, Bobby Crimo sentenced to life in prison, 146 weeks and 3 days after the shooting. Life in prison equals 146. That's also 33 months, 2 weeks, and 6 days for your constantly sponsored 33. But here's the big one. Again, all major events on the world stage are synced with the superior general. Again, the leader of the Jesuits, just like the Jesuits gave us the calendar. Robert Crimo III equals 163. 163 days after the superior general's birthday, sentenced to prison. He's one of the top stories today. Again, 163 is the 38th prime. Again, Bobby Crimo connected. Remember, 38 is connected to death. Death, murder, killing, RIP. They're all 38. Murder by Numbers, the movie poster. Big 38 right in the title. Again, this is synced with what happened in Russia, Ukraine, and it's synced with Bobby Crimo. The whole world's new script. Well, maybe I should say the whole world. The Jesuits claim to operate in 112 countries. Maybe there's a few countries out there that are free of their reign. But pretty much all the major nations in the world are under the script of the Jesuits. They've colonized the world. They've spread their brand of religion. They got a massive flock of followers, a huge stable of sheep. They run the animal farm. And it's largely the reason the world looks like what it is. Illogical people who believe total bullshit of stories that just go along with whatever authorities tell them. Tell me religion's not the root cause of that. And I'll tell you you're a fool. Because it is. All right, so yeah, that's the big one here. And hold on. Where's this article at? There was a line when I was reading this story that just put a big old grin on my face. Where is it at? Prosecutors argued that Crimo was fully in control of his actions as he fired 83 shots. If you're new here, the word murder equates to 83 and 38. Again, look up the movie poster for Murder by Numbers. There's an 83 and a 38 in the title. The song Murder by Numbers by the Police came out in 1983. It's about how killing's as simple as ABC is 1, 2, 3. Bobby Crimo. 83 shots. All right, and again, just Turkey. I said something about Turkey and Philadelphia and the Pope's death, and here we go. Turkey earthquake days later. Again, without the Jesuits, there's no seismology. They tell you it's a 6.2 in Turkey when Turkey equals 62. And yesterday would have been 162 days after the Superior General's birthday. They're saying this earthquake happened yesterday. Would have been 162 days after his birthday, or it would have been the 163rd day of his age. Again, it's just like my birthday is July 21st. So July 22nd is one day after my birthday or my second day of my current age. With regards to earthquake, it equates to 163. I don't think that's an accident. Remember, in the U.S., Philadelphia is the 267 area code. Philadelphia 267. The next pope is the 267th. In biblical terms, the Church of Philadelphia that gets the letter about the synagogue of Satan, those who claim to be Jews but are not, Jewish equals 88, like the Pope just died in 88 ritual. Again, that's in Turkey. So I think these things are connected. Keep in mind, yesterday, the day of this earthquake, it had a lesser date numerology of 52. You just get that by adding 4 plus 23 plus 25 for April 23rd, 25, 52. Earth and Pope equal 52. I think this is related. So they had to say the quake occurred at the Sea of Marmara, close to Silivri, if I'm saying that right, which lies around 70 kilometers to the west of the city. Just the 70 stood out too, because, again, that was a big number in the Pope's death also. Vatican and France is 70. But, yeah, a 6.2 in Turkey. Those damn Jesuits controlling the readings. Now, again, you look at every major depopulation agenda going on Earth. War, Cooties 19, LGBTQ, which obviously has to do with depopulation. Again, if you want to be LGBTQ, that is your right. I'm all for freedom. I'm all for personal choice. I just want people to see that you might have been baited into some of your choices, and you might be serving agendas that you didn't mean to serve. Again, the people at the top want to reduce the population. I think part of it is righteous. I think they do want to preserve the earth and make it a cleaner, more sustainable place. And they realize that there might be too many people based on the consumption patterns that people have developed. Then again, you drive across the U.S., you realize everyone's crammed into cities. You spend, drive from East Coast to West Coast. You're driving through the Midwest, the Dakotas, Montana. You're like, God, there's a lot of space. I feel like if we spaced it out here, and I feel like we could all just fit here. And if we learned to live more without all the consumerism and trash and plastic, if you're just picking food straight out of the garden, you're not contaminating the rivers and whatnot. I feel like we could all fit here. But anyway, depopulation is a real thing. Massive book written about in 1968, the same year coronavirus was coined. Fentanyl was approved by the feds. Everything went down for 9/11. Again, look into the book from 1968, The Population Bomb. Shortly after that, Henry Kissinger had his mass conference about his plans to depopulate in 47 countries. Wasn't an accident. But yeah, this LGBTQ thing. Again, a lot of young people really sucked into it. I know just within my own immediate younger family, my niece, she's going the LGBT. She's going big on the T. She wants to be a boy. But yeah, obviously you're not going to procreate if you're not with the opposite sex. So that's going to serve the depopulation, just like everybody ODing on fentanyl. All the baby boomers, they got cleared out from following the COVID-19 advice. If they didn't get their lungs blown up on a respirator, the clot shot might have already gotten them, or their time is near. Yeah, again, I know this is the first podcast. If you're new here, listen to Breaking It Down, but we've gone into great detail. I've written books about it. If you guys want to read my books, Number Games by Zachary K. Hubbard, Letters and Numbers by Zachary K. Hubbard, the information's out there. Anyway, this Protect the Dolls thing just has those same old Jesuit fingerprints on it. Protect the Dolls movement began on the 54th day of the year, February 23rd, 2025, at London Fashion Week. And Jesuit order equates to 54. Again, huge number with Jesuit history. The first Jesuit university in the U.S. was established by 54-year-old John Carroll. John Carroll equals 54, like Jesuit order. Again, the Jesuit headquarters is the Church of the Jesus, Building 54. You might remember Studio 54 back in the day, not an accident. You might have seen They Live with Roddy Piper. Cable 54 is the enemy of the world. Roddy Piper tweeted on the anniversary of the Jesuits being recognized by the Roman Catholic Church that the movie was a documentary, only to die on Ignatius Loyola's feast day, which is the anniversary of the Jesuit founder dying. 54 is a massive number that comes up all the time with their actions. So yeah, Protect the Dolls, which is saying, hey, stand up to Donald Trump, who's Jesuit educated. He's their puppet. It's saying, hey, stand up to Trump and his movement against LGBTQ. We need the children to be able to have access to mutilating their genitals so they can't procreate. And another big number with the Jesuits, it's Society of Jesus, which equates to 56. 56, 54. Jesuit Order 54, Society of Jesus 56. There are two names for the same thing. You'll see how these numbers get put together all the time. It's like HBO. HBO equals 56. Home box office equals 54. So many of their actors who have died in 54, 56 rituals. R.I.P. to Omar, for example, from The Wire. The first episode of The Wire on the screen, it says it's May 4th when the episode begins, 5/4. He died on Idris Elba's birthday, the most successful actor to come out of that show. Anyway, the first person to do the movement was Connor Ives, whose name equals 56, on the 54th day of the year. And again, he did it at a celebrity gathering because celebrities, they're influential. They know that celebrities move people. People want to emulate what they see celebrities do. And as for the phrase itself, Protect the Dolls, it equates to 78 like Jesuit, like Trump is 78 years old right now. It's a movement targeting Trump and his supporters. Again, united we stand, divided we fall. These people are experts at keeping populaces divided. Should be a reminder that Lincoln blamed the American Civil War on the Jesuits. Should be a reminder that the Revolutionary War began on Ignatius of Loyola being recognized as the first superior general. If you look into the beginning of the country, a lot of people didn't want that war. They were fine with being ruled over by the king. Like, what? Somebody's going to rule over me. Why do I care if he's across the Atlantic or he's right here in the American shores? And really, that's how the average person is today. Most people just want to be ruled over and told what to do. Makes life easier for them. Well, at this way, I don't have to decide anything, and nothing's my fault. I'm just doing what I'm told to do. It all sounds good until you got turbo cancers and your heart stops from the clots. But yeah, again, if you missed my work on Shannon Sharpe being accused of SARAPE. Again, that story broke the day the Pope died, the 266th Pope in the history of the church who spoke in D.C. on the 266th day of the year. Shannon Sharpe, born on 26/6. Shannon Sharpe from Chicago, the 312, when Jorge Mario Bergoglio equaled 312, going with him dying on Trump's 312th day of his age after Trump supposedly got 312 electoral college votes. Again, if you missed all that, you can go back and check it out. My YouTube channel, which was formerly called GematriaEffect.News 25, which is now Breaking It Down with Zachary K. Hubbard. You can go back and watch the video from what happened to Shannon Sharpe. There's a lot more to it. But I do find it interesting that Gabby Zuniga equals 54, speak of the devil, and her full name, Gabrielle Zuniga, equals 145, going with Catholic equaling 145. And, you know, I'm going to assume since she's Latin that she's very likely Catholic. But again, the story broke the same day the Pope died, and the Pope died after 145 months of being the Pope. But yeah, she wants 50 million. They're saying that Sharpe was willing to pay 10 million, but she wants 50 million. It's very interesting how at the time of this thing, she doesn't have that much of a following online. It's like, how did Sharpe even meet her? They must have crossed paths unless... it'll be interesting to see the way her social media grows. Not even 4,000 followers. No, not even 4,000 followers. She has 79 posts at the time of the controversy, which is interesting because Society of Jesus also equates to 79. But, yeah, again, no doubt it's a ritual. I point out how Club Shay Shay equals Jesuit order, and now so does the accuser. He's had a lot of success with that Club Shay Shay, in addition to his football career and his TV commentary career. He's got 3 major income streams. Somebody wants 50 million of it. All right, here, just real quick, too. The New Jersey wildfire, I did a stream on this yesterday, but just quickly to recap, it was the 56th Earth Day. Society of Jesus equals 56, like climate change. This story is selling the climate change agenda, which ultimately is one that aims to put more taxes on us and limit rights and liberties and control over your own life and gives the authorities more say-so of what you can do with your life. Essentially, that's what everything boils down to. Again, understand, you're listening to somebody who does care about the earth, and I would like to see people consume less and have more thought about what their actions do to the earth. Absolutely. But burning the woods down to make a point, to take away your rights and liberties and impose more taxes on you and increase your cost of insurance, all the things that these very evil agendas are doing by the same numbers over and over, it needs to be exposed. So again, 56th Earth Day. You could also say it was the 55th anniversary of the first Earth Day. It's the same thing because, again, the first Earth Day was April 22nd, 1970. The second one would have been in 71, so that would have been the first anniversary, but the second Earth Day. So, 56, again, climate change and Society of Jesus. The Jesuits put this number on all their high rituals. You have no idea how many times they stamped it on the Scandemic. It was mind-blowing. But 55, burn equals 55, and as New Jersey burns, the acting governor, because the current governor's over in Poland, the acting governor is there. And again, we just saw this with the fire in LA. The acting mayor was out of town. We saw this with the Lahaina fires. Governor Green was out of state talking about the Green New Energy deal as his state burns up. And then they implement or begin to implement a 15-minute city. But we keep seeing this. What's with the major fires and the authorities being out of town? This is a pattern. But again, burn equals 55, and we have the 55-year-old acting governor at the time that New Jersey burns on Earth Day. Now, also, they're saying the high winds spread the fire rapidly through New Jersey, What's the hockey team doing right now in New Jersey? The Devils, associated with that fiery place, hell. I remember when Miroslav Satan was in the league. But anyway, they're playing the Hurricanes. They're playing the Hurricanes at the time New Jersey burns. And keep in mind, Satan equals 55. From New Jersey's birthday to the fire beginning was 125 days later, or 4 months and 4 days. Consider that numerology equals 125, 55, and 44 in the base ciphers. These are numerology rituals. Military also equals 55 and 44. Earth Day came from a Wisconsin senator, Mr. Gaylord. Wisconsin equals 125, 55, and 44. With regards to climate change, again, this was the 56th Earth Day. Like I said, climate change equals 56. When you run it in reverse, it equals 70, like how the first Earth Day was 70. And the number 56 and 70 are related through base 8 counting. They're equivalent to each other through base 8. Keep in mind, with regards to the Jesuits, they operate in 112 countries, and this fire began on the 112th day of the year. Keep in mind, the Pope died the day prior. All of the Pope's encyclicals were about doing something about climate change. Pope also equals 56. His first encyclical about this was Fratelli Tutti, which equals 56. The day after the Pope dies, who was very earth-centered, this happens. Just think about it. Gaylord Nelson, who founded Earth Day. This fire began 43 days before his birthday anniversary, June 4th. New Jersey equals 43, the state that caught on fire. The Garden State on fire on Earth Day. That means it was also 322 days after his last birthday. 322 is a number that's special to Kabbalah, which has a physical model. It's the tree of life that has 3 pillars and 22 paths. You'll see 322 in high occult ritual a lot. Again, Genesis 322 mentions the tree of life and knowing good and evil. Again, the evil half of Kabbalah is known as the Qliphoth, and it's about sorcery and spell casting through the Kabbalistic knowledge, which includes this letters and numbers. Think about setting the Garden State on fire on Earth Day as an evil Kabbalah exercise. Today, they're saying they have the fire over 50% contained. Today is the 114th day of the year. Garden State's 114. And by the way, just with regards to Trump, who says he doesn't agree with climate change, again, it's all part of the polarizing, divisive narrative. This fire began 53 days before his upcoming June 14th birthday. Ocean County equals 53, as does Burn. Burn equals 55 forwards, 53 in reverse. Again, you got to know the ciphers both ways to see the totality of the rituals. 4 elementary ciphers to learn. You learn it, you'll be able to break down the news every day, literally, no exceptions. Also noteworthy, they start calling this the Jones Road wildfire. Jones Road wildfire equates to 101, as does Jones Road alone, as does climate change. Jones Road also equates to 38 like fire. The fire began 163 days after the last wildfire in New Jersey ended, 163 the 38th prime. Jones Road also equates to 52 like Earth. Again, this happened on Earth Day. Pope also equals 52, going with the 52-week calendar named after the Pope when the Pope rules over Earth. Jones Road is County Road 505, a bit like 55 for the 55th anniversary of Earth Day. And what's funny is Jones Road has existed since 1952. Funny enough, the first act of weather warfare was admitted to in 1952 on the Jesuit order's birthday, August 15th. So how perfect that Jones Road also equals 52 when it began in 52. And yesterday we did a podcast on this. We had a great caller phone in and say, hey, did you realize that the first Earth Day was also the year that the Environmental Protection Agency was created? The EPA was created on December 2nd, 1970. That was 224 days after the first Earth Day happened on 22/4. The Society of Jesus equals 224. Again, Vatican 70. I don't think it's an accident. They've been running the show for a long time. All roads lead to Rome. And I got to tell you, out of all the things I cover, nothing irks me more than this weather warfare and watching these people set fire to nature and use military technology to flood out towns and cities for the sake of agenda and for the sake of taking over people's land and pushing up everybody's insurance cost and saying, oh, we really got to do something about this climate change, send us even more tax money. Here, we got a 15-minute city plan for all of you so we can monitor every last thing about your life. I mean, don't get me wrong, all things good and bad. In a way, I could say, man, if you could get to everything and you had great access to things that matter within 15 minutes, I see the benefit of that. If that's really helping the earth become a better place, I see the benefit of that. But the reality is, I see 15-minute ghettos where Big Brother's got cameras on everything, tracking every last digital inch of your life. And meanwhile, these people are at the top and they're still flying everywhere, with their private jets, probably still setting woods on fire for the hell of it, starting needless wars. Again, the real plague of the earth and thing that needs to be dealt with the most is getting rid of this cabal. The religion's got to go. People need to get over their dogma. All it does is keep us all back, keeps us from acting, keeps us from becoming people of action and doing something about real problems. Has a lot of people sitting on their hands with their hands folded, praying that some figure is going to come down out of the sky and solve everything. It's like, haven't you learned from your ancestors that doesn't work very well? What do you mean? I remember this one time 24 years ago when I prayed and then I won the lottery and I actually won $150. What about the last 24 years of praying? Again, don't get me wrong. There is something to prayer. Again, it like I always say, it ties in with the first rule of Hermeticism, that all is mental. You put your energy and your mind towards things. It does help achieve them. But again, faith without works is dead. Action's the most important component of anything. Combine prayer with action. Stop waiting on mythical figures to come solve the day. These people are going to continue to start war, spread plague, burn down your forests, flood out your town, make you pay for it, until we break it all down. So anyway, we'll leave it there for now, Truth Seeker. I got to go pick up Sweet Girl. And I do appreciate everyone who hits the like and the share. Let me know what you guys think about the rebranding. Is this a good idea, a bad idea? I feel like we got to switch it up and try out some things. The time is now. Sound Mental says, breaking news, Gilbert Arenas' son, USC commit involved in a car crash and is reported to be in a coma. I'm going to have to look into that more. I know Gilbert Arenas is 43 years old right now. The 14th prime number in coma equals 14. We kind of saw this over the weekend with the self-deletion of the former Columbine student. On the anniversary of that shooting, they had in the headlines that she took her own life on the 47th day of the year and at age 43, and they made her officially the 14th death from the Columbine thing because they said even though she did that this year, that really her death is connected to that tragic day. I thought, wow, that is the greatest leap in statistical records ever. A self-deletion, 25 years later, goes down as an official death at Columbine. If you guys still haven't looked up the footage that was released from the Columbine shooting, you should, because what you'll see is government officials were walking all over that school during the shooting. They were wearing white polos with khakis, and they had clipboards and walking completely fearless. Have no doubt that Columbine was another government operation that got the mass shooting fear-mongering really rolling. But yeah, thank you, Sound Mental. Shout out to Run Your Pockets for becoming a member for 4 months. I appreciate that. Smeed20 dropped a big 2. Thank you. Mentalect. We live in a simulation or a scripted human experience based on gematria, ritual, astronomy, numbers, etc. I appreciate the donation. I really don't like that assumption. I feel like it's one that's just like religion. It keeps people parked on their hands. Well, if we're in a scripted simulation, why do anything? Hey, man, we're in a scripted simulation. It's all just going to play out. It's all just one big computer simulation. We're watching it unfold each day. I don't think that's what it is. I think that they do use computers to create the daily narratives that become the news that shape the minds, but it's not a simulation. It's not Sim City. I'm not a character in Sim City. They might be making the world like a simulation through what they're doing, but this is an agenda. Using technology and Kabbalistic practices as a form of mass mind control. Yeah, so I disagree with the simulation thing. Run Your Pocket says, I'm LGBTQ. Let's get this bread quickly. Indeed. I like the rebranding of that. Run Your Pockets is a regular contributor on our daily sports streams on Patreon. If you want to take advantage of the rigged world of pro sports, which is rigged the same way as we're showing the news is, hey, think about signing up. Ava Moon also chipped in a big 7. Appreciate everybody's generosity today. I'm going to leave it there for now. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the rebranding, and we will be doing the Count on It podcast tonight. I think we'll be talking about mental health in light of what a couple people in the community are going through. And hope to see you there. Till next time, True Seeker.